And welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg. We're broadcasting live in Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast. Joining me, as usual, is none other than Mega Jesse. How you doing there, buddy?
Oh, yeah, doing good. We got a lot of interesting stuff to get into today, and great interview, too, so excited to be here.
Yeah, and I love how you wear your troll shirt there of George Santos.
Oh, yeah.
You
I got to
really
stand in solidarity, you know. They're trying to take my man out. I'm not going to let it happen.
Joining us today also is congressional candidate Steve Boyd. Just met you for the first time. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me in.
I can't wait to get into our interview with you because you're challenging a Republican establishment favorite in Minnesota, Michelle Fischbach, in the primary in 2024.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll get into that subject. Reading your comments at home is the lovely Bridget. How you doing, Bridget?
I'm doing fabulous and ready to read comments. Tucker, good afternoon, everyone.
There you go. Well,
Tucker's here like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, he knows on Tuesdays you're here, so that's why he's in early.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
If you want to be a part of our program, for sure, you can interrupt this program at any time by clicking the Rumble Rant, and we'll read your Rumble Rant live. Also, make sure you like this episode so it tells the algorithm to spread it around. Doesn't matter if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble, or listening after the fact, whatever the medium is, just make sure you like that. Tells the algorithm, hey, this is good content. I like this. And I like the Steve Boyd guy they're talking to. I want more of that. That's how we know. If you don't hit like, I'm going to think, well, okay, maybe he didn't do that well on the show. But I'll blame it on you because it can't be my fault, Steve.
Please like the show, please.
All right, running the dials as usual is Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. How you doing, Dawson?
I'm doing wonderfully. It's a beautiful rainy day in mid-November, Minnesota, and we're cooking with gas today.
Okay, there we go.
See, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah, whatever comes to the top of his head, I guess, today, huh? That was weird. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't get to that Alex Jones review, right? The game?
Not yet.
Okay.
Once we know that people are excited to see it, then I will do a playthrough of the Alex Jones game.
Yeah, we're going to play the what do you call it, the preview of it or whatever, the video he did, the promotion. It's good stuff. We're also going to talk about Twitter, Elon Musk going after Media Matters. This is a really interesting topic if you haven't heard that one. The Argentina elections. Is this guy a libertarian dream or is he a fraud? We'll get into that a little bit with Mega Jesse. Green energy costs going up for you here in Minnesota because they're going to build this new power line that runs from the solar and wind fields down in southern Minnesota all the way up to the retiring Sherco coal plant, and you're going to be on the hook for that. I may or may not talk about how pissed off I am about property taxes going up. I might. Maybe that's a Rumble Rant. Okay? So anyhow, big things to cover. But first of all, Steve, I found out you were challenging Michelle Fischbach in CD7. Okay? So basically, if people don't know where Congressional District 7 is in Minnesota, you go to the top northern quadrant of the state, and you basically go all the way down the western side of Minnesota, and that's Congressional District 7. It's the largest, I think, by landmass. It's got to be the largest. I mean, 8 is pretty big, too, but isn't 7?
I think it's the biggest, yeah.
Yeah, it covers a lot. And by the way, very diverse, too. You're covering, like, southern farmlands to northern woods, so, like, pretty dang diverse when it comes to a congressional district.
And I drive a 3/4-ton gas truck, so I think I might have to find some different transportation for this.
I thought that was very politically correct how you didn't tell us if it was a Ford, Dodge, or a Chevy.
It's a GMC. No problem there.
Okay, I'm a Ford guy now. I don't know what to think of this guy. Here's the problem I see in Washington, D.C. We have politicians who, I don't even want to give them the due and say that they just don't have the foresight. I think they're bought and paid for people. I think basically they're marching to the beat of someone else's drum. They are leading us into catastrophic debt, which is being financed by higher interest rates now. And to solve these problems, they literally turn to the Federal Reserve to print money. They aren't following the Constitution, and they're engaging us in new foreign entanglements. That's the problem I see in Washington, D.C., and I see a very bleak future. Am I off on that?
No.
Am I seeing this the same way you are seeing it? Tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, you've strayed so far away from the Constitution. The only explanation to me can be is that they're working for the people that put them there. We were just talking about that it's the special interest money. It's the big dollar donors that got them there, and that's who they are beholden to, right? Not the people. So there's no excuse. There's no reason why we can't hold the line on budget. When we see the issue we have, $33.5 trillion. Do we even comprehend what trillion means?
Oh, we were having that discussion on the show. We were like, we keep talking about this problem. Can you comprehend what that $1 trillion means? Like,
No.
There's those things where they say you stack it up and you go to the moon and back and stuff like that, but you can't see that, right?
So I broke it down into seconds because I was having trouble comprehending it. And like 1 million seconds, or 33.5 trillion, or 33.5 million seconds is a year. 33.5 trillion seconds is over a million years.
Oh, wow.
That puts it into perspective. And that's what we're in debt. $100,000 per person. I have 5 kids. We're on the hook for $700,000 in debt. And then we're kicking it down the line again with another continuing resolution. We got our border wide open. We're not willing to stand on that. At least if you're going to do something with that, at least hold the line and say, we got to close the border if we're going to give you any more, continue the spending at these levels, nothing else. The power of the purse was intentional, given to Congress, to the U.S. House of Representatives for a reason, for the balance of power, and they're not using it.
Right. I just looked up on usdebtclock.org. Debt per citizen, so meaning like your children, $100,433. Debt per taxpayer, $259,103. So I think, I almost said that the per taxpayer is like buying a home, but what home are you buying for $250,000? But it's a half a home in the suburbs of Minnesota or of the Twin Cities. Half your family right now. You said you have 5 children, so you're over $700,000 right there on the hook for this. These are real numbers.
You got to run for Congress to be able to handle that kind of debt load now.
What? Yeah. Apparently, you can do very well in the stock market.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. That's what I hear.
There's a website called Unusual Whales. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, we just tweeted out. You can go check out our Twitter or X, whatever the heck it is called. You know what I'm talking about, Twitter. And this is Unusual Whales. We just retweeted Jackson Harvey's tweet. Breaking: Senator Tina Smith bought $200,000 in. And it's got the ticker symbol. Artivion Inc. and Tactile Systems. Since buying it, the Tactile System is up 19% and Arvidian is up 5%. Senator sits on the health committees, a direct conflict. Both get government contracts, which she manages and earmarks. And that's what Unusual Whales is. Great Twitter handle. They kind of expose these huge conflicts of interest. It's like the Pelosi's, everyone knows, are like beating Warren Buffett and everyone else's returns in the stock market. It's like, well, gee, I wonder how that's happening.
Right.
For $180,000 salary, which basically you're poor in Washington, D.C. It's why a lot of those guys like live in their office.
AOC, she can't handle the 2 houses on that salary. She needed more, she said.
Yeah.
Well, but it's a bad salary out in D.C. I'm not joking. Like,
Yeah, you're
D.C.'s
right,
insane. It's like these guys are getting wealthy in other ways. It's not their salary, right? So what is wrong with you that makes you think you'd want to do something like that? Like, literally, it's the swamp. You want to go out to the swamp?
I didn't say I wanted to, Jake. But you know what? I got 5 kids, and this is unsustainable. You can't keep going like this. Number one, even if you look away from just the budget aspect of it, the lack of liberty that we even have, the complete degradation of the principles that we were founded on, the track we're going on, they're not going to have in America that I grew up in, and even what I grew up in was starting to trend towards this, right? So we have a responsibility as citizens to do something about it, and if no one else is going to step up, can I win? I don't know, but you have to step in and say, look, we'll do something. I'm not going to look at my kids in the eye and say, well, I went on Facebook and I commented and I shared things, No, if I feel like I have the ability to go do something about it, I have to do it. And, it's going to take people that don't necessarily want to be there and don't care if they get sent home as long as they're standing on their principles and fighting for something that's worth it, and not just another political ploy, another piece of legislation that maybe we like better, but it's still unconstitutional. It's still taking us down the same track that we're going. So,
our show's called Truth Hurts. And by the way, if you guys have questions, go ahead and put in the comment section and we'll ask them. Our show's called The Truth Hurts. I'm just going to tell you the truth, right? I've dealt with a lot of candidates. I'm listening, I'm watching you. I don't see bullshit in what you're saying. I'm just being frank here. Like you seem very genuine what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
And that was a damn good response. It's exactly the way I look at politics. Like, why am I doing this? I've got 3 little boys at home. Like my parents. Look at my future, right? Now look at their future. Like, my future seems to be screwed. Their future's really screwed. We already talked about Social Security's not going to be there for these kids, right? But they'll be paying for it, So, everyone that watches the show knows the problems I see, right? And a lot of people agree with it. But you said something about we're losing these freedoms, and that's maybe just a platitude, you hear all the time. But if you had to pick maybe the top 2 or 3 freedoms, the biggest threats to freedom that you see and that you can do something as a congressman, what are those?
Well, we're giving up our agency to the government in so many ways in exchange for safety, essentially, or comfort. So whether it's the overreach of, you could pick any number of the 3-letter or multiple letter agencies out there. We're just trading off all of those things to try to maintain a lifestyle or maintain not having to be involved. And I don't think we even realize the slow decline that we are going into on those freedoms. I mean, COVID was a great example. It illustrated it for people. It woke some people up, but not nearly enough. We still are operating out of fear so many times. And so just that aspect of duty as a citizen, of our responsibility in it, just abdicating any type of responsibility. And that's whether it's financial freedom, whether it's we talk a lot about Second Amendment, right? Those are freedoms that are going by the wayside with another little regulation here, another little regulation there. Well, that's an inalienable right given by God. The self-defense shall not be infringed is quite clear, isn't it? But
I think so.
But we give it up because we don't want to take on the fight of having the real conversations about why we have gun violence, and the families. I mean, a lot of our freedom is going by the wayside just by the degradation of family values. It's you're not living in freedom when you're living in paycheck to paycheck, depending on the government, whatever the case may be, because your dad's not in the home or whatever. We're just we're not grasping the American dream. We're not living under that principled approach that we were founded on.
You obviously are new to politics, but I think you started getting involved when we were chatting earlier, 2020 time frame or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested. I've always paid attention, even into high school years. Always a history buff, but really started diving into Constitution and our founding principles about 3 years ago. And
what spurred that interest all of a sudden?
it was funny. I was listening to Charlie Kirk, and he used the term biblical citizenship. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting term. I've never heard that term used, so I just was searching for the term to see, and this class came up from Patriot Academy. I don't know if you're familiar with Rick Green and David Barton and those guys. And so came across this class, Biblical Citizenship, explains really well as Christians why we're supposed to engage, what those founding principles really are. And that's really the first time I understood the principles behind the Constitution. I read it. I knew how the government was structured. I knew, the balance of powers and this, checks and balances, and that was all great. But until you actually understand the principles behind it and as to why it has to be that way and the moral framework that has to be for self-government, self-responsibility, that led me into just understanding better the principles in the Declaration and Constitution. Was
the events that were unfolding around you also making an impact on it?
We had a whole lot more time on our hands. No, yeah, it really did. I mean, you see everything going on around you, and you hear things like that's unconstitutional, and you realize, well, I guess I would say that too, but
It's rare
when
you
I
even
stop
hear
and
someone say that, though. It's like the
you think
fringe people
about it.
like us that would say something like that, right?
right. But and half the people, when they say that, do they even know if it's unconstitutional or
No, they have no
not?
idea.
You know, and so then I'm like, well, I need to know if I'm going to say that. I need to know if it's unconstitutional or not, and come to the realization it's not all that complicated.
It's really not.
You
no,
know?
it's not. Yeah.
They
And,
didn't make it to be difficult. They made it pretty simple.
I mean, our Minnesota Constitution actually has a article, and it says that the governor, or actually one person of another branch of government, can't take on the roles of the other branches. It's separation of powers, right? So how is the governor all of a sudden, because there's an emergency, taking on all legislative functions of the government?
Right.
It was never supposed to be that way.
Nope.
But the judges saw it against us, and it's just like, it's so obvious to us what he's doing is unconstitutional. We got really big during COVID as an organization. We predate COVID, but when COVID happened, right when Governor Walz issued that first executive order saying you got to stay at home or you could spend 90 days in jail, I'm like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is wrong. You can't do. You don't have that right. Even if it's good policy, and at the time, none of us knew. I mean, 15 days to slow the spread made a lot of sense to us back in March 15th,
Right.
2020. But we knew you couldn't do that. And it's such an important point because this is a constitutional republic, and you don't get to just choose your powers. You're actually you're confined to what the Constitution gives you. And so if you can just assume powers, and by the way, I also have you ever looked up the definition of dictator? It's really fascinating. Merriam-Webster literally says it's someone with absolute power during an emergency because they've watched the span of time, and it's always an emergency when they use that dictatorial.
Famous Rahm Emanuel line, right?
There you
Remember
go.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they exploit emergencies for their own power grab. And so it just because there is an emergency doesn't mean the Constitution's irrelevant. And this is actually a point that we can't even get all Republicans on board with in this state. We had the Never Again bill. I know you're running for U.S. Congress, so this is a state bill, but well, maybe it should be a federal bill as well.
Right.
But the Never Again bill, meaning you can't throw out the Constitution because of an emergency, right? And you know the old people that would challenge us. It's like, yeah, what if an atomic bomb went off in the United States? It's like, no one's turning to government in that case. Yeah, I was like, it's the dumbest. Yeah, right. It's like we literally just went through a pandemic that, with a really short amount of time, we kind of knew how to handle. And they blundered it too, by the way. But we kind of knew how to handle it in a short time. If we were paying attention to the data coming out, the science, as they say, we
Trust
kind of
the
knew how to handle it.
science.
Yeah, trust the science. And yet then we saw them take that power in their own hands. We were just talking about this in the pre-show. And I think people forget about this, but in Minnesota, Thanksgiving of 2020, Governor Walz decreed you can't even go visit someone outdoors on their property. Did you remember that?
Yeah, and my response was, yeah, watch me.
Yeah, a lot of us did.
Come
Yep.
get me. I don't.
Yeah.
You're not telling me where I can go on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea that it's not just in the home, like, it's one thing for you to be locked in a home with people and the airborne disease spread, but it doesn't spread outdoors. We knew that at that point, and they said you can't be on the property.
Yeah. And that goes even further back, July 4th, 2020. So, they were always trying to lock us in our homes. Everyone, you're completely right, Steve. People were operating out of fear instead of, doing the hard work of analyzing the data, understanding, how everybody's reacting to it. And we ultimately have to choose our freedom over fear. And everybody can take their own responsibilities for their own health, but everybody has to be able to live their lives as they choose.
Let's. I'm going to go to some comments here. Let's pull this up real quick. Dawson, the line 9. This is a resolution in U.S. Congress. What was the date of this, Jesse? Do you remember?
This was
July 17th, 2021,
Yep.
Or June 17th.
Yeah, June. Yep. And so basically, what's going on in this resolution, House Resolution 484. Michelle Fischbach was a sponsor and the writer of this piece of legislation, which protected which protected Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson's profits by fighting to keep their intellectual property rights for the COVID-19 vaccine. So obviously this is not capitalism to allow only 3 companies to be able to produce a medicine. So if you look at that second paragraph there, it says, quote, the most respected and most sought after vaccines in the world due to their exceptional efficacy and safety. So first, Steve, do you agree with that? Do you think that the COVID-19 vaccines were the most respected, most sought after vaccines in the world due to their exceptional efficacy and safety?
I do believe that has been disproven since
I think so.
No, that is ridiculous. I mean, we've seen the efficacy alone when they told us that you wouldn't get COVID if you took this vaccine, and then they, of course, told the truth about it, but then still made people take it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing a lot of questions, not even just efficacy, but safety.
Mm-hmm.
Some real issues with safety. Hashtag died suddenly didn't happen for no reason.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions there.
But see, and you just say that and then we gloss over it, but it's like you got a congresswoman here, and but quite frankly, a lot of Congress people,
yeah,
literally saying this is safe. Now, if I'm not
while
following
protecting corporate interests.
correct, and maybe we should look up how many pharmaceutical lobbyists donate to her campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not following shows like this and all the other alternative media out there, you hear a congressperson say something like that, and we know this, we've all seen it, the safe and effective line, here they are saying it, writing it down, and you go, maybe I should get that vaccine.
And you should be able to trust a congressperson when they say that.
Yeah. You're supposed to, you should
Yeah,
be able to.
we've gone a long ways.
Right, but you shouldn't ever just take someone's word for something. You should research
Right.
things on your own, but you
100%.
should be able to believe that someone, at least I hope, is saying it earnestly, even if it's wrong.
Yeah, and in 2021, you can find the tweets where Michelle Fischbach is out there calling it safe and effective. She is the one using the establishment talking point words of safe and effective to describe these vaccines. That's what all the Democrats were doing. That's what all the RINOs were doing.
Well, people will say, oh, well, that's just, that was back then, right? Like, we all made mistakes, which, by the way, I don't know what mistakes we've made. I'd love for someone to call out, like, some error we made.
Yeah.
Like the 55,000 Facebook group that was taken down on internet that we managed, and our Facebook page, 15,000 people, just taken away overnight. Like, I'd love to go back and see if there was anything that we said wrong on there, because I don't think there was. But I admit it if we were. I don't excuse them for this, because they are literally a person of power. And last I checked, not a doctor, not a scientist. So they're pushing something that has now led to deaths and injuries. And by the way, as I say this, I realize this is probably going to get us kicked off YouTube. So Steve, well,
It's a badge of honor, isn't it?
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I won't blame that one on you. That's going to be on me.
We
got
have a
Rumble
Rumble
rant?
rant. Yeah, $10 from KWall for Life says, have you seen the Fall of Minneapolis documentary yet? It's available on the Alpha News Minnesota Rumble page.
Have you watched it,
I
Steve?
have not watched it. I was hoping to tonight yet.
Okay,
you go.
good. Yeah, I got to go to the pre-screening, because in case you haven't noticed, by watching it, does this desk look very familiar in that thing? Liz, I gave Liz a lot of crap because she took over my desk one day. This precious desk is like basically, this is like the Oval Office here. How dare she take over my desk? But anyhow, and then also our secondary studio, that's the backdrop for those interviews. So, yeah, go check it out on Rumble.
Yeah.
I got a
Yeah.
chance to see her and Bob over at an event. They were promoting her book, their line and stuff. She's phenomenal. The
Yeah.
work she's doing on that.
Bob's an interesting guy too,
Yeah.
getting to know him.
Yeah.
Not quite the monster they paint him to be out
No,
in
I
the media. It's
think
pretty
he,
funny. Really down to earth kind of guy.
But yeah, Dawson, if you
okay.
could pull up that resolution just one more time. There's another section there I want to talk about here. So the third paragraph, it says, quote, intellectual property protections are vital to incentivize innovation. And obviously, in general, I would agree with that statement. But, competition is what breeds innovation, and it's not monopolized control of medicine by big pharma. And, intellectual property is very important, but should it be afforded exclusively to, these big pharma corporations pushing experimental mRNA shots? We want to know the ingredients of the shot. And when there's resolutions like this, all it's going to do is try to bury that information. It's a top-down approach instead of a bottom-up. So what is your opinion on this, Steve? Do you think that Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson should have been given this intellectual property protection so that we, the people, don't get to know what's in these vaccines?
Well, I think there's a big issue with not being able to know what's in it. As far as protecting copper rates, things like that, I think that's an important part. But I'm even more concerned with the fact that none of these vaccine manufacturers get any repercussion if something
Or
goes
liability,
wrong. They're
right.
completely protected against any liability. I'm more concerned about that and the way it was rushed to market, and the trials, and I mean it was all done. And I mean you can go hindsight and say, well, we didn't know what we were working with. We were trying to save lives, and that's all fine. But now, where's the conversation?
Right.
To say this is safe and effective before with what you knew at the time, that's one thing. But to not have come out now and said we were wrong, and we have to do something about this, or I was wrong, I'm sorry, I should have never pushed this, or whatever the case may be. Either you still believe it, or you're not willing to make the apology, and you have to in that situation.
Yeah, and once again, I just go back to it's like one of those things I don't know if you can apologize. Like, listen, I'm a Christian as well, so I do believe in forgiveness. But I do also believe you can make mistakes that mean you should not serve in a certain position again. And this is one of those mistakes. You use your position of power to tell people something was safe and effective, and it turns out it's not. And now many, many lives have either ended or severely dampened by that vaccine injury. We've had a person on this program that had a vaccine injury from, I think it was the Moderna one. So it's just one of those things where I can't, you can apologize, but I think that tells us you shouldn't be serving in office anymore.
Right. And where we should be having representatives standing up during that time when people that are trying to get other options out there and other information out there are getting completely shut down, lives ruined. Where were our representatives? Where were the people that had the platform and the power saying this isn't okay? There has to be dialogue on this. It's one thing to have the narrative that to take the vaccine, but you can't completely suppress any other options that are safe options for people to explore just because you want to keep an emergency use authorization. So there's so many aspects to it that were just wrong across the board, and we should learn from. I'm not sure that we have.
No.
But but those of us who saw what's going on need to make sure we're alert.
Yeah, we the people's health needs to be the priority, not these big pharmaceuticals profits. It shouldn't be about Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson making more money. And it just shows me that, that's where Fischbach's interests are. And it's nice to hear that, your interest is about we the people trying to make sure that these vaccine injuries are taken care of. And that's really important to hear. That's the kind of issues that, someone in your district, a very red district, that's where you need to be leading on.
Right.
All right,
well,
let's
free
go
enterprise. I mean,
yeah. Let's go to the Rumble questions
we have
here.
a question from Brad Ganser. He says, why do you think you could win?
Because I think people are sick of the way things are being done in Washington, and they're wanting someone that doesn't have anything in the game other than wanting to stand on principle and actually do what needs to be done. I don't care about money. I don't care about power. I care about this country, and that makes me extremely dangerous to people that are there currently. And I think people are seeing that. They're tired of it. And if I can, the challenge will be getting in front of enough people and counteracting the money. We're going to have to raise money. We'll probably never raise as much as she can. But if we can get in front of people and engage more people into the process, because we have to. I mean, we can't, even with what I want to do, it's not going to last if we don't actually turn back into republic again. But if we can do that, I think we can win handily.
Nice. Okay. Other comments?
North Minnesota says Alpha News, A4L, and Minnesota Gun Rights fighting daily for Minnesota. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, North Minnesota.
I don't think we have any specific questions anymore right now for Steve.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
They'll let you off
But
the hook,
Carol
doesn't
Hexum chimed in on Facebook, says Steve is a good man. We need people. We need good people in government.
Nice. Okay. Let's go into what I would consider a hot topic right now. And we haven't discussed all the issues, so I'm kind of curious where you stand. I mean, we've got this Israel-Gaza war going on. We're how many weeks into this thing? We're over we're like, 6, 7 weeks into it now?
Yeah, think about 2 months.
What should America do here?
I don't think Israel needs our help to defeat Hamas in this. I think our role, as it should be in a lot of these things, as showing strength, should be making sure no one else gets involved and it doesn't turn into a big conflict in the area, just by a show of strength. People talk about funding, they talk about all these different things. Well, the first question, and especially when it comes to funding, should be, do we even have any money? Which the answer is no. So, maybe a form of a loan, whatever. I'm not in the room for those conversations, but
Wouldn't that be interesting if we're a creditor?
right. But Israel has every right to defend themselves against what's going on, and Israel's been an ally for many years. But that doesn't mean that people like Lindsey Graham and stuff get to start salivating the moment there's a conflict that we can maybe get involved in.
So what you just said to me says that you see the neocon part of the wing that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, there's a lot of people that will talk good about the Constitution, but then it's like you get into this war and they just basically forget about us not having a humble foreign policy, not getting these entanglements overseas.
And requiring a constitutional declaration of war.
There you go, right? Literally, you want to talk about the powers of the Congress. That's one that literally is theirs for a good reason, because if you can declare war and then lead the troops, you're a king. That's why we had that separation of power. And it's like, well, as long as the president does it within 60 days, it's like, what? That's not how it's supposed to go.
Well, we just had Veterans Day, right?
Yeah.
You can't go into a room and see those guys and see the young people that are there now and then just flippantly be involved in conflicts all over the place. These are our boys, our girls that are involved, and again, that doesn't mean you don't support Israel, the Israeli people. If someone came in and did that to us, we're gonna respond, right? And they have every right to respond to that. But I think it doesn't just automatically get to be, neocons jumping on and getting excited.
Yeah. Of these candidates right now running for president, Nikki Haley certainly represents that wing pretty obviously. Yeah. Do you lean one way on the candidates?
To me, there's only two options. DeSantis and Trump. I mean, there's outside of that, there aren't any.
You just hurt Mega Jesse's feeling by
I
saying
know,
that there's two options there.
I figured, but I think they're kind of cut from the same cloth in as regard as more constitutional America First type things. Everyone else, I mean, thankfully Pence dropped out. I was starting to feel bad for him.
Yeah.
But I haven't figured out Vivek yet. Nikki Haley. Again, it's just establishment. We just can't keep doing that anymore. So,
and additionally, I think that you have said that the 2020 election was stolen. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so.
that's
all right. Now we're off on YouTube.
That's
for
allowed
sure.
on YouTube. Remember, they changed the rules on that one. That one's allowed on YouTube.
Well, now we know the headlines for Fischbach is election denier.
No,
Well, that's already been out there.
that's
Star Tribune
important.
already covered that. We're all good.
Yeah, but I just got to say, that's a hard thing to go out there and say, and a lot of these Republican politicians, a lot of them know there's a lot of fraud that's out there, but they just don't want to. They don't want to talk about it because they think it delegitimizes our elections. But we have to be honest with the fact that there were some crooked things going on in the election, and I appreciate that you're out there at least saying that, because people need to call that out.
Well, you can't look at the evidence and say there isn't at least questions that need to be investigated. Like, I can't say for certain what the vote total was, but there's enough questions there that people refuse to address. That I'm concerned we're going to keep repeating the same problems because we are running from those.
Right. You look at the
issues.
mail-in votes, you look at the changed election laws in all these different states, you look at the Dominion machines, there's lots of questions, and, at the very least, we deserve a true investigation
And we know
it.
for a fact now that they suppressed the Hunter Biden story that, for everyone's viewpoint, would have made a difference in this election. And it wasn't just the social media companies acting alone. It was 51 intelligence officials saying it's Russian disinformation. It's the FBI going to social media companies and telling them to suppress that story. Knowing that happened, how do you not say the election was stolen? the federal government, the deep state, literally stole an election by manipulating the most consequential news story in that election cycle.
Well, and frankly, you could even say somewhat legally stolen too, because all the election law that was passed, maybe it doesn't add up if you go find all those other issues, which I would still say, but if you add in everything that was changed in some of these states prior to the election with mail-in, different things like that, where it wasn't even done correctly, I mean, it's just...
Right. Big advantage to the Democrats, no doubt.
Yep,
Right.
and Fischbach, instead of investigating our election, instead of doing anything worthwhile of the time, she's going after, I know Israel's the number one issue right now, but the number two issue is George Santos. And, Michelle Fischbach, she's on the ethics committee for those who don't know, and the ethics committee voted unanimously to refer George Santos to the DOJ on November 16th. And the next day, the ethics committee chair, Michael Guest, put forward a resolution to expel George Santos from Congress. And on the previous expulsion vote, Fischbach voted present, so she wasn't willing to take a stand either way, as did the other members of the ethics committee. When in doing so, that makes it easier for that resolution to pass. And luckily it failed, but it's going to be voted on again. And since Fischbach has already voted present and in support of referring Santos to the DOJ, some people are thinking it's likely that she might vote to expel him and take the GOP majority from 8 people down to 7 people. So, Steve, what's your opinion? I mean, George Santos, of course he's a liar. I've been reading through the ethics committee report. Just like any other politician, he's a liar. If we were to hold them all to the same standard, we'd have 10 Congress people left in there.
That sounds like a good idea right there.
Right. So in your opinion, do you think that this is a good move for Fischbach? Should she be trying to lower the Republican majority, even if it's Santos? You want that extra vote just so you have more cushion room to pass conservative legislation. What's your opinion on what she's doing here?
Well, you probably won't like my answer.
That's all right.
I think we have to actually start having some integrity and holding people accountable, even if it's not fair both ways. Someone like Santos, and I don't know all the details of it, but playing the politics, just doing the, well, it's our guy, so we're going to try to let it slide thing. It's not working. We've been doing that for years. Now,
Well,
I
you
like
can
your
do-
idea of holding everyone accountable
Sure.
and wiping it out and starting over. That's not a bad idea, but it's just, I mean, yes, we have to pass conservative legislation, but frankly, we're not doing that anyway. And I guess my question would be, is he actually even going to vote for actual conservative legislation anyway?
Right.
So,
Well, he'll vote for Republican bills, whatever
Yeah.
the hell that means right now.
well, yeah, that might be a difference between
But then
conservative
I
and
guess my next
Republican.
question then is there a way to hold him accountable without expelling him? Is there some kind of other alternative?
I
is
mean, you
what
could
I'm asking.
censure. There's some different things you could do. I guess I back it up to say how in the world did he get there in the first place? But
Yeah.
I mean, now you're left with a problem because we didn't take on a responsibility that we should have had in the first place. Now we're left with a problem we got to mop up, right? And so there's another illustration of what the problem we have going on there. So
Right.
I don't know if I have a great answer for that. If there's another good way to do it, I think he's probably pretty ineffective in general now,
Probably.
just because of everything that goes on. So
All right, I'm going to interrupt this because, quite frankly, of all the important issues out there, and Jesse has the dumbest, most irrelevant question on the planet.
It's important
Who gives
to
a
me.
crap about that lying politician? My God,
well, he's got the
Jesse.
shirt. So
I know. It's like, yeah, he should be expelled, but at the same point, it's like, really, should we get in the position of expelling? Isn't that what voters are for? It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're $33 trillion in
Yep.
debt.
And yeah, no, I'm with you. We were talking before the show. It's like, how do people like Santos, how do people like Fetterman get in there?
There you go. It's the
I
bigger
just like
question right
Santos
there.
for the sake of entertainment. So I'm completely with you. That,
AOC
you know,
wasn't enough for you, huh?
right.
you
But
said
I'm completely with you. We need to hold them all accountable. We need the same standard of justice, and almost all these politicians are crooks.
You said something about what conservative bills. Let's play this. This is Chip Roy on the House floor just the other day. I found this very interesting, asking what are we getting done as conservatives, as Republicans here in the U.S. Congress?
One thing. I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing. One. that I can go campaign on and say we did? One. Anybody sitting in the complex, if you want to come down to the floor and come explain to me one material, meaningful, significant thing the Republican majority has done, one thing.
All right, so what is that one thing? Can you name it, Steve?
Nope.
They're in power. I mean, granted, it's a slim majority, but it's a majority. What is the one thing?
Still hold the power of the purse.
They hold the power of the purse. What is it? Is there not a one thing?
Yeah, not really.
Okay, there we go. That's why you're running for office, I guess, right? If you answer that question, that was a gotcha question. Because if you answer it, then the people are like, well, they did achieve this. But I don't know. We observe this. We follow it. Oh, well, we finally got hearings into the background of this stuff. It's like, what? It's resulted in nothing.
Another
we can't even impeach
investigation
Biden. They impeached Trump twice. We can't impeach Biden, China Biden. Like, look at what this guy's done. Everyone knows this guy has been paid to play his whole entire career. It's out there for us all to see. That we've had, it's not fake news. We've had the Hunter Biden laptop since, 2019? That's been out there. We know the crimes of this family. And we can't even get this guy impeached. Not even impeached by a Republican-controlled Congress. Like, I was just thinking, and we'll get into the story here about Twitter and Media Matters. For those that don't know, Media Matters created a fake story about Twitter basically placing ads by neo-Nazi accounts. And Apple and IBM and some of the bigwigs just left the platform, took tons of ad dollars away from Twitter. Turns out it's not a true story at all. And Tim Pool tweeted out, "Don't be surprised when you see the government was behind this."
Yeah.
And I was thinking, he's probably right. And then so what?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know they were behind Twitter removing the Hunter Biden laptop story. We know the White House was behind groups like us being shadow banned and then eventually removed from the internet for telling the truth about COVID. And what the hell's been done about it? Nothing. Not a single thing. At this point, I think in Trump's presidency, Junior had been basically subpoenaed, or at least called to Congress to testify multiple times. Mm-hmm. And we just pretend like this Biden family is doing everything above the ground, like above the book, like on the books, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so Chip Roy's right. Name one thing. We can't name it. I remember, I got a little story for you. When I think it was 2018's election cycle. Yeah, it was when I moved to the house I live in right now. New congressional district, but also new legislative district. And the current sitting rep, Republican, running for re-election, comes to caucus night, and she gives her speech. And her speech, her big achievement was getting a pro-life license plate in Minnesota. And I'm just like, who here is motivated by what she's saying? And I'm not trying to tarnish her as a person. There's just no accomplishments, because when Republicans were in charge, and they were for the last 2 years, they did nothing. No control of spending. Government grew, I think, 9% back then. More debt taken out. One thing. So let me ask you this, Steve. You get to Congress, and you're going to take on a leadership role. You know, I don't know if you'll end up as high as Matt Gaetz' leadership role, or maybe a leader in some other way. But what's the number one thing you want to do in that role?
Well, first thing we got to do is seal our border.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't even have a country if you can't have a border, right? You don't even have a country. So first thing we got to do is, hopefully by the time I get there, that's taken care of. But
you know it's not. So what are you going to
Right.
do to get that done? You're one congressman.
right. So, you know, the thing is,
It's a tough question, huh?
well, the reason it's a tough question, though, is because the Republican line has always been, we need more majority so that we can pass legislation to actually affect the culture and get things done.
Right.
But it's never enough, right? It doesn't matter what majority you get. It's never enough. There's
Not
always an
veto-proof
excuse,
Senate.
right?
Oh, we don't have the Supreme Court.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have this backwards mindset that we pass legislation to affect culture, and that's how we'll get this change. Democrats figured out a long time ago that you change the culture, you change the hearts and minds, and that's going to, affect everything on the legislation level and make it stick. So we can be there, we can fight, we can stand, we can push people, put them on record as to what's going on and try to influence legislation. But frankly, we're going to have a dual purpose of spending a lot of time back here at home, actually getting culture change, getting hearts and minds changed. So when we actually have conservative legislation we can pass, it actually sticks, because otherwise it's not going to stick. Because, take abortion, for example. I'm pro-life all the way, moment of conception. But if I got a law passed tomorrow, which isn't possible, but let's say I could, to completely ban abortion, did we fix that problem?
No, absolutely not.
No, because you still have, in Minnesota alone, 12,000 women that either have a perceived need for an abortion or a desire to have one. You have a value of life issue, right? So it would never stick. You're gone. That administration's gone. Everything's getting switched. And we see this all the time. Even when we get things through, the next administration comes in and it completely gets flipped on its head, because we didn't get any fundamental change, because we didn't get the people to come on board. So when it comes to the budget thing, we can't get a budget cut. We can't get spending cuts if people are still got their hand out looking for their, benevolent king government to supply their needs.
Well, I like what you're saying. So if I get this right, you don't look at your leadership role as what you achieve up in the halls of Congress, but what you do when you come back to the district and getting the people and the culture changed.
Well, it's going to take both, but I don't know if you're looking for huge legislative wins from the angle that we're going to have to take in. I don't know that we can get those immediately, because we're so far gone. I think you can bring light to things. Anytime you shine light on the darkness, you're going to illuminate something, right? But putting people on record, hopefully you have people there. If you have enough of us, the Chip Roys and the Matt Gaetz and those guys that are willing to fight, if you get enough exposing things, you get other people that have come along. I think there's a lot of politicians that they're taking the temperature of the room to see, because they're legislating to the next election, not to what's right, true, and good, right? So if we can make it popular, if we can make the Constitution and the true good government popular again, we don't necessarily need to switch all 435 seats. We just need to make it popular enough that some of the other people come along too. So I think just holding the line, things like, defund the DOJ while these investigations are going on. Propose that. Why isn't anyone even trying to do that?
It should be their leading thing. Let's go to Rumble and see if we got any questions.
Mike Geller says they all spend more time investigating their behavior instead of actually benefiting the people by addressing any issues. And then when you asked him that question, what would be the one thing? Debbie on Facebook says, ask Kevin McCarthy. He gave a whole list he would have answered with.
Say what?
She said, ask Kevin McCarthy. If he had been asked that question, he would have had a whole list.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
But yeah.
But no one's asking Kevin McCarthy anymore.
Yeah. Nobody's asking McCarthy anything anymore, Nobody cares.
Kind of hurt by that.
Yeah.
How would you have, let's say you were a congressman in January, what would you have done during the speaker battle in January? And then let's fast forward. Answer that, and then let's fast forward to the more recent one.
Yeah, so that's so the one in January. McCarthy certainly would not have been my pick. I don't.
There's about 20 so that decided to vote against him.
Yeah, I think 21.
Yeah. So are you one of those 21?
Oh yeah. You got.
You just don't know who it would have been, but you just.
Well, Jim Jordan seemed like a good option. I think Mike Johnson. He talks like I talk.
And of course, back in January, no one even knew who that guy was.
What a Mike Johnson was, right?
I think Byron Donalds was a big name that emerged.
Yeah,
Jordan,
Byron Donalds,
obviously.
I think would have been. I'd have been.
Would you have been?
The holdouts.
There's eventually 3 holdouts in the end, or something like that, or some that went president. Would you have been the holdout to the? I guess you know what I'm gonna. I'm gonna draw that question because basically why he ended up winning the speakership is given promises. So that's quite a hypothetical for me to throw at you without that.
It'd have to take an internal negotiation for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you would have been one of the 21 originals that were against him. let me ask you this question. Then it comes to the removal, and you only had, I think it was 8.
Yeah.
Are you number 9?
You know, I wasn't quite sure in that process what their plan was.
Mm-hmm.
That was my only question. Like, I loved the fact that someone was finally standing up for something, you know,
Yeah.
regardless
Rare,
of how
huh?
unpopular it was. So I'm like, that alone might have been like, yeah, sure, I'm with you, because that Chip Roy had actually a really interesting take on that, and I probably could have been convinced with his plan, but I'm glad Gates did that, because if you did you watch proceedings at all during that
We
vote to remove?
Yeah, we literally did live commentary on it.
Did you ever see that level of emotion, anger, and fight out of our Congress that they showed to save McCarthy over any of these other things we're facing?
I mean, we
Yeah.
loved how what was his name from North Carolina slammed that gavel down all pissed because they just removed the speaker.
And who was it that was crying over it? I can't remember. There
Well,
was one
I
of
don't
them
know.
that was
Yeah.
crying over it. But
Was it Emmer? No, okay.
I mean, that was pretty illuminating to me, how there's actually fight there.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it on, you know, things to do with sealing our border or saving the future for our kids through, you know,
Very good
budget
point.
legislation,
Yeah.
different things like that. So, but it's clearly there when one of their own is under fire, and we got to save the office. Literally, the office. You know, that was part of what they were fighting over, was who got the office. But so that part
he
was
earned it. It's owed to him, don't you know?
right.
Yeah.
But so that part is what really stood out to me. And, you know, the result, I'm not thrilled with the first line of business, the continuing resolution. I'm glad he released the January 6th footage. Everything Mike Johnson says lines up with what I want to see there, so I'm willing to give him benefit of the doubt there. But what I can't stand now is they're all saying, well, we lost 3 weeks, that's why we didn't have a budget deal ready. Were you locked out?
Right.
Why couldn't you continue to work and have something ready? Like,
Yeah.
that's not an excuse. You've
It's
still got a
ridiculous.
job to do.
Yeah.
And why wasn't it done earlier in the year? You knew the budget battle was coming.
Right. I mean, I don't know how much of that ends up on Mike Johnson, you know, because
No,
you know, he wasn't
I
the-
just mean
yeah.
in general, like
But that's
It was
100%
more on
true.
McCarthy for not bringing these votes up. You know, they only
Right.
did one of the single subject bills in the meantime, and then says, okay, we got to push this continuing resolution. So, yeah, I mean, you're right.
did
It
we
should have
not
been
know
going
we
on
had a
for
budget
months in
to do?
advance. Yeah, exactly.
Boebert cried?
I think that's.
She was the one crying?
I don't know about
I
that.
think Brad's joking, probably.
Oh.
Yeah.
She was doing something in the back.
Yeah.
Brad's being.
it was probably
Brad.
Liz Cheney. Oh wait,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Uh-huh.
You're going to stick around for the show because we got a lot of topics. But before I forget, website, where do people find more about you?
yeah, www.boydforhouse.com. Check us out there.
Boydforhouse.com.
We got Facebook,
BOYD.
BOYD.
There you go.
yes.
Right on the shirt. Too easy.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Let's
nice.
talk about this Twitter and
Where's it?
Media
There we go.
Matters story. This is fascinating. So basically, Media Matters comes out. Media Matters, progressive, leftist. I shouldn't even say progressive, leftist rag, you know. Basically, it's a nonprofit, charitable thing. You get tax-deductible money goes to it. And to basically correct the ills of the right-wing media. That's basically how they put it. Why don't you I don't see the on our sheet.
Nope.
I must have forgot to put the story. Let me quickly add this here, Dawson.
It's
So
a
I wanna-
hang.
What's that?
It's a hang.
It is a hang. That's right. Anytime the show doesn't go perfectly,
We do our show prep on the show during. the
they
show.
throw this at me because our format is a hang, so it's more casual. So
Throw it right back in your face
throw
every
it right
time.
back in my face. Even I've seen Tucker and some of the other people in the comment section throw that back in my face. We got the best audience on the planet. I love these guys. They're awesome. K-Wall and T-Wall, my favorites. They'll all be hanging out at a Christmas event, by the way, on December 7th at the Mermaid in Mounds View. Good times. All right, so this is Media Matters. Okay, I mean, you could just see on their website which way they lean. Scroll down here. They did the story right up there, that the red with Elon Musk. They did this story as Musk endorses anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. By the way, a lot of people are saying he's just doing this anti-Semitic tropes on Twitter. It's ridiculous. It's just more headlines. They definitely. Here's my theory. They want to take down Twitter right now or X. They want to hurt Elon because the important election's coming out, and they don't control all social media anymore. You know what? Like, if you look at 2020, what's the big difference between 2020 and every other election? The left controlled media. And not only left controlled media, now we know the government's controlled the leftist media. And it's not happening anymore. So if you're wondering and puzzled why Elon Musk is being attacked like this, as he's some anti-Semite, which is a ridiculous statement, it's because they can't have Twitter. I mean, Joe Biden's losing in Michigan. Joe Biden's losing with 18 to 34-year-old demographic. They're freaking out right now. And so they're like, oh, my God, we don't own one of the social media platforms. And it's not just the fact that Twitter is powerful, because there's still other powerful social media platforms. It's that if you go so far to the left, all the Facebook people go, but Twitter is at least keeping it honest. So now they have to compete. And so it's ruining their big plan. Mm-hmm. So this is why they're attacking Elon Musk. So what they do, and they use Media Matters as their hit piece. Go back to that article, Dawson. They have this X says, I want to read that headline real quick. X has been replacing ads for Apple, Bravo, IBM, Oracle, and Xfinity next to pro-Nazi content. So they're basically showing...
It's such a crazy allegation. Like that means that Twitter was going out finding pro-Nazi content, specifically placing ads beneath it. You know, it's like, it makes no sense.
Well, it does make sense, Jesse. Elon Musk, anti-Semite, takes his company and places ads.
Yeah.
That's why they make the connection. Look, it's the headline.
It's so ridiculous.
I think
it is ridiculous.
I think it's even stupider than that because, like, it's all algorithms, right? They're just putting ads all over the site. So.
Yeah, right.
Well, the truth is not too far from that. So let's
the
scroll down.
The algorithm's anti-Semitic.
Scroll down here. Scroll down, and you'll see the examples that they use. Now, mind you, this isn't just some news story that's irrelevant, guys. Major companies, Disney, Xfinity, IBM, they pulled ads. Apple, they pulled ads off the platform. We would assume this is millions of dollars in a week and a revenue hit to Twitter or X or whatever the hell we're calling it these days, right? By placing these ads. Here's a story, and this is what we're finding out. And Elon Musk is now suing, and we have the attorneys general of Texas and Missouri looking into potentially criminal fraud by Media Matters. They just announced this today, launching these investigations. Because what happened is it turns out Media Matters employee created a Twitter account, followed only a neo-Nazi and maybe one other person. So the neo-Nazi's on their feed, and they just refresh until an ad for some of these big guys gets turned up. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden now we have our story, which clearly in a civil case, Twitter can show huge damages, right? Mm-hmm. And it looks like it could be a lawsuit that will literally destroy Media Matters. Good, right? Because they're anti-free speech, obviously. And the other question, and I think I talked about this, Tim Pool estimates that possibly the government was also behind this. And I can't wait to see the discovery phase of this lawsuit. Now, this might happen a long time down the future, unfortunately, but it's pretty interesting case here of people trying to manipulate little fake news about Elon Musk, and it happens to just not be true at all. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember where I was going to go with this topic. I had a hook on this one at the end. Where the hell was I going on that one?
I don't know. Elon Musk, free speech.
I know. It's just
Trump's
a hang,
gonna
right?
win.
And it's a battle Elon will take, too.
Right.
Question
oh,
popped
yeah.
up for Steve. Do you want me to read it?
Oh, go ahead.
Someone on Facebook, Tammy Berry, says, I'm late to this. If you have already talked about it, then forgive me. With CD7 Chair Craig Bishop and Otter Tail County's BPOU Chair Ben Anderson being paid employees with the Fischbach District Office, how would this ever be considered a fair election? Ben is Fischbach's district director. They should do the right thing and resign as chairs.
It's a very good question. You want to respond to that, Steve?
You know, I don't know Ben. I know Craig. I don't know how you can fairly oversee an endorsement process. while working for someone. I wouldn't allow anyone working for me to do that. I trust. I've talked to some people that have talked to Craig, and I trust that Craig will recuse himself when needed from those processes. So we'll keep an eye on it. But I don't think we should be having employees of candidates running things that are part of the endorsement process. But we have this mindset in Minnesota, especially that we don't ever challenge people. So usually it's not a problem, right? So we've created this narrative that the primary doesn't exist for a reason, and that we just wait until there's an open seat and wait your turn, and it doesn't really matter what's being done by the person in there. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
It will be interesting, yeah. Do we have other comments? Razzle Dazzle about Fischbach. What's that?
Razzle Dazzle says, Fischbach Liberty score is better than Emmer's, 83% versus 69. Can you run in CD6 instead, Steve?
Well, if only we can make good changes by a voting record.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to
So
see what
true.
that voting scorecard is, because, any voting scorecard can, not include certain votes. It could not include certain bills. It could, misinterpret bills. It could say that there's a good bill when it's actually a bad bill. And, everything's a lot more complicated than that. So, I would look at that 83% with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think she's in a very safe. Well, so is Emmer, but Emmer's part of the leadership team. So the thing that I know about Fischbach, when you look at our scorecard, she was voting for all the big omnibus bills. Which, by the way, if you want to follow
And
the
Ukraine.
Constitution, Article 4, Section 17 says all bills are single subject, and clearly they're not. So, sorry, not Article 4, Article 17, whatever. I forgot which one it was. But anyhow, there's a
But it
very
says
important,
it. Yeah.
Section 17, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a very important part about how that all bills must be single subject. So, we see often when you get into leadership positions how different. By the way, if the Fischbach people come at you about how we should all be on board, the primary is not the place or something like that, it was Michelle Fischbach that joined Tim Pawlenty's primary challenge of the endorsed candidate Jeff Johnson in 2018.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of us forget that. She's got an interesting career because she was a president of the Senate. So they kicked Tina Smith up to the Senate, and so or the U.S. Senate, and so there's a gap. So she becomes lieutenant governor of Mark Dayton. That would be a funny hit piece on her.
Yeah.
And she was Mark Dayton's lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
But per the Constitution, she ended up, that was another funny thing. She didn't accept the position right away because it would have given the Democrats majority or a 50-50 of the Senate. It came into play. It was a really interesting time. So they kept her in the Senate, so the Republicans still had the majority. Not that it really did anything because they're a bunch of weaklings.
Yeah.
But anyhow, then after the Senate adjourned, sine die, she became lieutenant governor until she ran as the lieutenant governor candidate for Tim Pawlenty, challenging the endorsed candidate Jeff Johnson in the primary. So really, they can't they're probably going to do it, and they're going to go around saying it, but that's like her record of actually going against the endorsed candidate.
Yeah, I don't think I would list Lieutenant Governor from Mark Dayton on my resume.
Yeah, probably
if
not.
I was, but it's there. It's
Well,
touted.
it would be a funny hit piece, although it's a little facetious because obviously the story behind it. All right. What do we got here in comments?
wish
Mike,
that on
with
my
me-
worst
media
enemy.
Yeah, he
matters?
says
Yeah,
media
right.
matters should remember that integrity matters.
That's right. Exactly.
And Tucker goes on to say media matters should have remembered that they don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I can't remember. I was going to conclude on something. I just completely left my hair-covered computer. Let's go to Argentina's elections. Tell us
Yeah,
what is
I
going
just
on
threw in
there.
a quick video. I actually got it from Tucker in the comments there. But
yeah?
yeah, so this is just an interesting video. What he says he's going to be doing, the new president of Argentina, or the president-elect at this point, Javier. So this is just a quick little video of him showing all of the different governmental agencies that he is going to abolish if he becomes president.
I assume you're talking about this one.
Yep.
Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera, aunque te resistas. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, afuera. Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social, afuera. Ministerio de Educación, adoctrinamiento, afuera. Ministerio de Transporte, afuera. Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. Se acabó el curro de la política. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
So I am excited to see what this guy's, going to be, because there's different people out there saying different things about him if he's actually.
Well, no,
going
tell
to,
people what they're saying.
Well,
You
some
know the
people
controversies?
Well, I know it depends on what people. Some people are just saying things, but
Look at it. He's already protecting him like
I know,
Trump.
he's already-
This is very interesting.
no,
It's
I'm impressed by
interesting.
this guy, and anybody who's calling themselves an anarcho-capitalist, I can't imagine that they're going to be a fake libertarian. I'd imagine that guy's probably pretty hardcore. So it's interesting that Argentina has been pushed to this place where libertarianism, that's kind of an American ideology. The libertarian type of way of thinking, it comes from our country. So to see that the spirit of freedom is alive and it's traveling to other countries, where this Javier, he was on the campaign trail with the chainsaw. He was having a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. He was out there pushing an American philosophy onto these people, demanding that they get their freedom. And we'll see how much he is actually able to do. His party only has a couple of members within their Congress. The opposition party is the one that controls it, but it shows that the people of Argentina were so fed up with the system, they're so fed up with the socialism, that they're willing to vote in some guy who is a claimed anarchist. And I hope that he really does a great job of bringing capitalism back into Argentina. I hope he does a good job limiting the size and scope of government. And he's right that, look at all those departments of government. A lot of them don't belong there, especially the Department of Education. He was right to point out that's indoctrination. We're seeing that in our schools. Who knows what it's like in Argentina? But if they have a socialist government, of course they were pushing that socialist Marxist, cultural Marxism across to their students. So this is one of the most exciting things. I've never seen a libertarian elected for president. So it's a good test for the ideology. I think that there's going to be some ups and downs with this guy, but I'm interested to follow it, and I'm excited to see what he does.
Well, let's go to base Minnesota with the person that actually wants to take the other side. Go ahead.
Says, so a pro-Zionist member of the World Economic Forum who promotes a digital currency is considered base now.
All right. What do you,
Well,
how do you respond
I don't know
to that,
where.
Jesse?
Well, the word Zionist, I don't know if that's what I would describe him as. He seems like he's pro-Israel. Does that make someone a Zionist? I don't know, because it seems like he kind of has a position where it's, of course, they're allowed to defend themselves, and it doesn't seem like he's the one trying to say that he's going to supply weapons to them or anything. The World Economic Forum, I haven't done enough research. I've seen that he shows up on the website sometimes for them. That's always something that you have to be skeptical of. If you're, having someone show up on that globalist website, you have to look at them kind of sideways and wonder, what is this all about? He was listed as some kind of economist for them, so maybe he was a part of some of those meetings. I don't really know. It'd be interesting to find out. But I don't think he's any kind of globalist sellout, but, considering the fact that he was listed on the WEF website, that's interesting to know. But the WEF puts out people's names on there to tarnish them. They did that with Vivek Ramaswamy, which, people can still discuss that, whether he's a fake or not. Tulsi Gabbard, some of these others. So I think the World Economic Forum is, they put people on that list that, good and bad, mainly bad, but we got to be skeptical. So we'll see. I don't mind being wrong about this, Javier, but I'm excited. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I don't think we'll know until he takes office and does some things. So
Yeah.
it is interesting. It was a socialist country, basically, so it is a different direction. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I have no idea.
I'm concerned about the hair.
Yeah, I know.
right?
It's hard to trust him.
And the
What is it?
chops.
What is it with world leaders? Boris Johnson, Trump, this guy.
Yeah.
Like, what is with the hair?
They probably
Right.
look at Trump and like, that's leadership. We've got to follow that.
Uh-huh.
K-Wall for Life says, turns out people don't like 140% annual inflation in their country.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, they got a real hyperinflation problem
Yeah.
in Argentina. Speaking of high costs, let's go to the story, actionforlabor.com. This was on Friday. They're building a power line. This is a new project Excel's taking on. And the reason for this, and if you scroll down here, you can see the actual map of it. Once again, actionforlabor.com, you can check this out. By the way, while you're there, go get your tickets for the Christmas event on December 7th, not January. December 7th. I'll pretend like I know when Christmas is. This is the possible routes for this new power line that connects. I mean, I think a lot of you guys know if you travel southern Minnesota, you see all those wind turbines. There are going to be a bunch of solar fields going up in there, connecting that to basically where the Sherco coal power plant is in Becker, and then bringing that down to the Twin Cities for power. The price tag is doubled, according to Star Tribune. It's now about $1.14 billion, a cost that will actually go to you and me, right? Xcel, and by the way, let's just be honest. The corporations, these big corporations, they knew the direction that our lying government officials are taking. First of all, let me ask you this, Steve. Well, how do I ask this question? I was going to say, is global warming real? It's like, yes, the Earth is warming. Okay, so what does that mean? So let me ask you this: is man-made climate change a serious threat that needs to be addressed by Congress or by basically any government?
To the extent they are now, no. I think it's climate change. Climate's been changing and fluctuating since the beginning of time, right? Do we have to be good stewards of our land? Absolutely. We can't just destroy our land and our resources. So there was a responsibility in that. But as far as what they're claiming as to what's going to happen in the next, they keep pushing out the goalpost, right? When it doesn't happen. But it's all a base to just pass policies that create more control for a government. And frankly, they're trying to take it global. So no, what they're claiming as the threat from global warming, I think, is a complete fraud.
Right. Okay. Well, a lot of these corporations, they see the way and the direction that government's going, and so here's this from
Xcel Energy, just like you're saying, who was behind the carbon neutral by 2030? Xcel Energy.
Well, and
Xcel
that's what I was
Energy
gonna
was 100% behind, that 2030.
There's government credits in it.
Absolutely, and also, they're the only ones that can compete in an environment like that. You won't see any kind of small businesses opening up to compete in the energy industry. And it's such a stupid idea to see a solar power line. I mean, that's one of the worst ideas I've ever heard in my life. And to say that it's going to be an effective use of energy and recruiting energy and everything in this state, I don't think so at all. I think it's going to cost way more. It's worse for the environment to make these solar panels than it is to burn coal. So. Looking at everything on its face, I think that, it's almost like these Democrats just want to destroy America and want to destroy our independence for energy. And, we're going to be completely reliant on China to buy all these solar panels. I think the entire thing is such a scam, and I hope that, something can be done to stop it.
Well, we've relied on innovation as a country to build what we have, right? So innovation is good, but if those things can't stand on their own 2 feet, they don't deserve to stand on, to be utilized. That's free enterprise.
Right.
Again, I know I keep using that term, but we're trying to resurrect it a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, and plus it's going to be another cost that we all bear because, this is $1.14 billion project gets passed on to us as consumers, right? And a lot of us are consuming Xcel Energy.
Yeah.
Not a lot of other competing choices out there.
Yeah, no other choice. Yeah.
Right. This, I got to bring this up here because it's just pissing me off so much. It's like everything's going up in price these days. Luckily, gas is temporarily going down. Luckily, right? And by the way, if gas goes down
to 3,
yeah, I know, right? Down to 3. I said this, like, if it goes down like $2, under $2, that means there's a massive global recession, right? There's so much money that's been printed up. Those prices of gas and oil are inflated because of the increased money supply out there. So for it to drop down would mean that you have a global drop in demand, right? You have an oversupply, so less economic activity. So, in some ways, you almost don't want to see gas go down for that very reason. You want to see gas go down because we rein in the money, the excess credit that we created. So all these prices are going up. The one price that doesn't matter if it's going up because the market says it's going up is my house. I'm not selling my house. I like where I live. I love my neighbors, most of them, especially you, Amber, if you're watching. You usually do. I love that neighbor. Some of them, I don't know, buy it. No, I'm just kidding. I love where I live. I'm not going to sell my home, but I just got my new, I don't know what they call it, the tax proposal for 2024. And my home value went up by another $50,000.
Well, lucky you.
Right. If I was to sell, which, by the way, who gives a shit if you sell? Because now I'm going to buy another house at an inflated price with a worse interest rate. You know, there's a lot of people in my demographic that are just stuck. They're stuck in homes because they can't afford to buy a mortgage at a different rate. But anyhow, I looked it up because we had another big increase. In the last 3 years alone, my property tax assessment has gone up 40%. And in the same breath, in this little letter I get from the county, you know, about the property tax estimate, while they assess the value of my house by 40% more in the last 3 years, they have the audacity to tell me, but the county has reduced rates in Washington County for the last 7 years. I'm like, you increased what you perceive the value of my home, so I pay more even with your stupid reduced rate.
Yeah.
Like, am I stupid? Do I not know what's going on here? Like, everything in my life, and you got 5 children, so I shouldn't be complaining to you. I'm complaining to you two. I got 3 children. It's tough to have children these days. It really is. Everything's going up. And it's like the one little preview you would think you could get is, I'm not selling my damn home. Why are you taxing me? Why are you assessing it more so you could tax me more? I personally, like, the old trope in the libertarian movement is taxation is theft. It is. It literally is theft. That's just theft. You determine the value to be more, and you tax me more on it. That's ridiculous. I haven't sold anything. Sorry. Anyhow, green energy. Let's get back to green energy. It's like everything. It's ridiculous how pricey. You know, I don't like McDonald's, but you know, with little kids, you go there. It's crazy. Someday I'm going to say to my grandchildren, I remember the dollar menus. No, I'm going to say it to my children right now. I remember the dollar menus.
You would not want to see what it cost me to take my entire family to McDonald's.
When you got teenagers too, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to guess. I bet you it's $80.
Yeah, if they get.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Because my family is close to 50.
Yeah.
And we're
For
still
McDonald's.
in the chicken nugget and
You're better off
cheeseburger.
going to. You were before, but you're better off going to a local diner.
yeah.
You
because
can actually eat
you can eat
for
yeah.
less. It's better food. You support local.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we do.
But we
Yeah.
always do the McDonald's. You go to the cabinet or something like that. You want to get something quick, and it's like we're just packing now. Like we just pack our own sandwiches and stuff. It's what we should have always done, but it's just $50 basically to feed my family, the little kids. Yeah, I can only imagine teenagers.
Yeah.
Base Minnesota says the biggest scam in my life is paying taxes on the money we make, paying taxes on money we spend, and taxes on the things we own that we already paid taxes on with already taxed money. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I saw a comment from Tucker too that he was talking up hydroelectric energy. I'm 100% with him on that one. That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
one renewable energy I'm 100% bought in on. So that's
Yeah.
good to see that me and Tucker are always on
You
the same
guys are on
page
the same
anyway.
wave.
Yeah, well, I wonder if Tucker's against nuclear like you.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to
Yeah,
find out.
Jesse's afraid
He'll
that
tell
every
you,
nuclear power plant's going to blow up or something like that.
Yep.
I don't know.
What do you think about nuclear, Steve?
You know, I'm going to be honest. Energy portion is not my area of expertise. It seems to be clean. I haven't seen issues with it being safe. I certainly prefer it over solar and wind and all these other ones we're trying that we're subsidizing. So, anything that is efficient and we can transfer well, I'm in favor of it, and is domestic.
Yeah, good to hear.
The domestic part's a big one.
Oh yeah.
T-Wall, McDonald's in Norway isn't a fast food restaurant. Yeah, that's true. It's funny.
It's like in
when
a lot of places, though. It's not as
Yeah.
much.
Hey, you're the
like-
world traveler, Bridget.
Not really, I wish.
What
But
do you mean?
I think when I was in
hold
Ireland,
on, hold on. What do you mean? In just this year alone,
Well, that's-
2
that is
Ireland
this
trips,
year.
Israel.
that's just here.
She's the one that started the Middle East conflict, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I landed.
Well, I'm just looking at the storyline here. You went
Oh,
to
it was in
then-
Israel, actually, that I was in Israel, and they were like, the McDonald's burgers were ridiculous. It was like 20-something. Yeah, it was like, that's like a special outing if you're going to McDonald's in Israel. I was like, wow,
Interesting.
interesting, yeah.
France? What's Tucker says France?
I don't know. Wasn't there riots in France? Is that what he was
Oh,
talking
Wait,
about? That was a while ago.
You've
though.
been Israel and Ireland. Where else have you been this year? I thought you've been somewhere else. Kansas, that's right. It felt like. a
Well, I
foreign
went
country.
in March. I went to several countries, but
There you go. Oh yeah. Europe trip, right?
yeah.
See, I knew I
Correct.
wasn't smoking dope, even though it's legal now. What are your thoughts on that? Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
right here.
think it's increasing productivity, and we need an increase in productivity. We'll put that way.
That's true.
Well, seriously, like, here's a real issue I see. Marijuana becomes legal in many states, Minnesota most recently, and you see the ATF put out a statement. I don't know if you know this. If you smoke marijuana, fully legal in Minnesota, you cannot purchase a firearm, because during the background check, they say you have to ask about controlled substance, and it's still a narcotic under federal law.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, and this is actually Hunter Biden, right? This is the case, is that he was on cocaine, or was a user of cocaine, and falsely on his background check when he purchased a firearm said that he wasn't using controlled substances. But no one here is defending Hunter Biden, but I would imagine this does come into play a lot of people's lives. And there's the old trope that show me the man, I'll show you the crime. People that will smoke marijuana in Minnesota but also want to possess a firearm. Not saying they're doing this simultaneous,
Right.
but it's not about simultaneous. It's that you've even used a substance, and they could go to prison for this. What are your thoughts on this? Is this something you would change?
Well, it doesn't seem to, when you have the federal laws not lining up with the state laws, and it's a complete mess. I don't think a lot of people even know what they can do and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm not in favor of legalizing it for recreational use. I don't think we know enough about how to measure it, how to, you can't pull someone over and do a roadside sobriety test for marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
The state just bought tests for that. So apparently they're going to try something out. We'll see, because I
Oh,
thought
they
the
figured
exact
something
same
out?
thing. Yeah, because I thought, I've never heard of that, but apparently they just bought 100 tests, $500 a piece. So we'll see if it ends up working. They're saying they're going to test it out for, results and effectiveness and whatnot. So we'll see if that ends up coming about. But apparently they're claiming they got something now. We'll see.
Well, I guess my question is more focused on, the Second Amendment, the right to keep bear arms shall not be infringed, and yet apparently if you smoke marijuana, it can be infringed.
Right.
It seems to be incongruent with the constitutional, the law of the land, basically the supreme law of the land.
Right. Well, if they're putting marijuana in the same category, they're legalizing it because they're trying to put it in the same category as alcohol and different things like that, right? Saying, what's the difference? Then you're gonna have to probably apply it to the same standard. Are you say someone can't because they drink alcohol? They certainly shouldn't be using one while drinking, right?
Yep.
But that's why when you get government involved in things that they don't need to be involved in, shall not be infringed, right? It just gets convoluted and none of it makes sense because there's too many layers of bureaucracy.
I'm going to press you on this, okay? So it doesn't look like I'm just giving you an easy interview here. Just happened to come across this issue, but it is one that I think is very important. Would you, if the vote was coming before you, vote to repeal whatever law that created that that barrier here that says that you cannot own a firearm if you use marijuana?
Well, it doesn't seem to make sense. So without knowing the full details of, the data behind what they're talking about, I mean, ideally, I think I don't know. This is something you just put up there.
Did you even know about this issue?
No, I didn't know about that specific
I'm gonna find
issue.
it here.
So
I'll be honest with you. Despite doing, whatever firearms I used to own and lost in that boating accident, which is really tragic. I've had to do the background had to do the background checks in the past, and I totally forgot about that little provision. And then of course the Hunter Biden story makes it very obvious because this is one of the things that he did in the plea deal. Dawson, I'm dropping it on line 15. This was an article we did. Let's see. Back in May 31st, Minnesota ATF chief agent says marijuana users prohibited from owning guns despite state pot legalization. So they got on this real quick because they're like, "Oh man, we've got to make sure people understand you can't smoke marijuana." Like, I don't have some big desire. I've never actually smoked marijuana. Okay,
Me neither.
I use a much safer drug, whiskey. That's the way it really gets me about legalized pot. It's like whiskey is far more dangerous. Okay. But anyhow, I don't smoke marijuana, and then I'm like, mostly just because what's worth? It's not worth it to me to break the law, right? And then it's like, if there's any desire for me to use it, I definitely wouldn't do it because even though I don't own any firearms anymore because of that boating accident, I would hate to lose that right and that ability, right? Mm-hmm. So this is in a press release from the special agent in charge, Jeff Reed, and this is a quote: "The Federal Gun Control Act of 1968." Prohibits any person who is an unlawful user or addicted to any controlled substance as defined by the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 from shipping, transporting, receiving, or possessing firearms or ammunition. That seems to be an infringement on a right to keep and bear arms. So if this provision of the 1968 came up in Congress, or just the whole Federal Gun Control Act of 1968 came up, where would you vote on that?
Well, like you said, it shall not be infringed. So, I mean, I'm always going to err towards not having all these lists of regulations to be able to own a firearm. Mm-hmm. They weren't meant for hunting. They were meant to protect yourself from a tyrannical government, ultimately, right? So, I guess I haven't thought about it from the aspect of a controlled substance like marijuana. So I don't want to give like this definitive answer, be the politician that says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do this," and then when it comes down to it, be like, "Well, I don't remember what I said."
I think
there.
you can.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think you could do both. I think you could say I'm not for legalization of marijuana,
right,
but still say you can't have an infringement on the right to keep and bear arms. Right. I think those two things can be in sync. But I don't think that can be in sync. And I'm throwing this at you. Literally wasn't thinking of bringing up this question. This just came up. And I'll send you this article. It's like, but how can you say shall not be infringed, and at the same time, and many would say this, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, but it's that damn marijuana. We can't have that. And so, that person's right to keep and bear arms shall be infringed. It's like, what? That's crazy.
And then where does it stop from there?
100%. Where does it stop from there?
Yep.
And that's the slippery slope we're in, right? We got a couple minutes left. Let's go back to comment section. Any comments or questions, and then we'll end the show.
Tucker just says, shall not be infringed is very clear. And then Dad of 878 says, random question, what is everyone's favorite Thanksgiving side dish? So nothing that is.
Oh, shoot. We were going to have our list of how to navigate politics at the dinner table. Shoot. Hey, Dawson, pull up.
You did not.
What's that?
You did not.
What?
Hey,
Oh, shut up. Let's see, line 16. This is a good meme. You got to check this out, Steve. This is what you should do at the dinner table here for Thanksgiving. Is on our Twitter page. Please, no politics at Thanksgiving this year. She's got a tray full of VHSs that say January 6th. Oh, I'll tell you what. I go to the in-laws, so politics will not be brought up. I'll put it that way. If I went back to my parents' house, which I was for the deer opener in Wisconsin, we'd talk politics, and we'd find the 0.5% where we disagree and really dig deep on those issues.
That's the way to do it at the family get-togethers.
Yeah, and people think my family's crazy, but we talk politics. We could be screaming and all that kind of stuff, and it's dinner time. We'll just, it's like nothing. It's like, who cares that we have the political argument? Some families, that's just crazy that we would do something like that. And those families are 90% of Minnesota families. Because I'm not originally from Minnesota. When I came back to Minnesota, I was born here, but it's like, that was really weird to talk politics at the dinner table. I was like, I don't know. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Let's go on this, unless we have one. Do we have any other comments
What's the favorite side dish, Jake?
Oh, favorite side dish?
Yeah.
Oh, let's go around. Go ahead, Jesse. Favorite side dish?
Wild rice casserole.
All right.
Ooh, that sounds
Steve?
good.
Stuffing all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a toss-up between stuffing and green bean casserole. They're both so
You
good.
could not possibly like green bean casserole.
I absolutely love
You
it.
don't
I think
like
it's
it?
amazing. It's so good.
Really? Just it's got green beans in it.
Oh, it's so good.
It's the best way to do green beans. I'll grant you that.
It's true.
Oh, we have stuffing that's got like breakfast sausage in it, and I think wild rice too. So yeah, that's the way to go. The stuffing with sausage, no doubt. We'll end on this. Alex Jones has got a video game. We have to talk about this.
Mine is gravy.
Sorry, Dawson.
Do you mean Jesse? No.
So sorry about that. Gravy's not a side though. That's just
It is when I'm eating it during Thanksgiving.
Well, you just have a pool and you like drink it like it's soup.
Yeah.
It's not on the side. It
I
covers
probably can't do that this year.
Oh, Tucker.
Oh, no.
Tucker did a Rumble rant. I think this is his first one, right? For the A4L Turkey and Beer Fund.
Oh, that'd be
Thanks,
fun.
Tucker.
Tucker's done Rumble rants in the past. In fact, I think pretty much
Oops.
all his Rumble
Sorry,
rants
Tucker.
are for the beer fund.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
I should have moved the
interesting.
bus.
We've got a big beer fund, apparently.
Well, we need to do a night show again to drink beers. You know, it's the only time we do that. All right, let's end on this. Alex Jones got a video game out. Have you seen this?
No.
You know who Alex Jones is,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's called the NWO Wars, New World Order Wars. And this is about the sweetest thing I've seen on the internet. You can pick it up. It's generally $20.24, but it's on sale right now for $17.76 for America.
That's right.
You know, this is the thing about Alex Jones. Say what you will about the guy. He's got a damn sense of humor. He's actually pretty damn funny. This is the best trailer on the internet, other than Napoleon, which that movie comes out tonight, which I'd love to see. Watch this trailer.
And Super Mario Brothers, and Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and Super Mario Brothers. And now, the ultimate retro nostalgia throwback game. I present to the world Alex Jones's New World Order Wars. They're turning the friggin' frogs gay. I'll eat your ass, you Nazi scum. Let's free the Patriots and defeat the globalist techniques.
We are going to defeat the globalists very bigly.
This game is mostly peaceful.
I'm going to lower the world's population.
Oh, big deal. I'm taking you down, rapist.
I did not have sexual relations with that saxophone.
Download it now at AlexJonesGame.com because, as we all know, anything badass gets censored.
I'm not joking. I am probably going to pay for that and play that over Thanksgiving, you know. And then I'm going to bring it up at the dinner table.
Yeah.
So, have you guys been playing the new Alex Jones game?
Yeah. It does look like he's got kind of that old video game style, like, you know, the Donkey Kong, like he was saying, you know, so
Yeah.
It does look it looks like, you know, probably pretty simple formatted game, but I mean, it still looks pretty dang cool, you know.
Yeah. If there was a vote to release the Epstein client list, would you vote yes for that, Steve?
Absolutely.
There we go. We got the definitive answer. That's all we need to know. Website one more time for people, Steve Boyd.
BoydForHouse.com.
BoydForHouse.com. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. This is
thank you. This was
fun.
fun.
Yeah, I wish you were just down the street. Unfortunately, or fortunately, why unfortunately? Fortunately, you're over there in Western Minnesota in CD7. So where are you going to be anytime soon? You got any events coming up?
We're just getting out, trying to hit all the county BPOU meetings. So we're going to be all over the state in the next few weeks, hopefully hitting many of them before Christmas, a few of them in January before the caucuses, but getting in before that, really trying to engage more people into the caucus process, more people in, we shouldn't have empty seats in the caucuses, right? So doing that, we got an event in Hancock, Minnesota on the 9th, and adding to the calendar every day.
Cool. Awesome.
Nice.
Well, good to know you. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We won't be back on Thursday. Enjoy those Thanksgiving dinner conversations. We'll be back in this chair on Tuesday unless something really important happens like World War III, and then we'll do a special broadcast. So thank you very much. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And I'll tell you what, I am grateful for all of you guys that are tuning into the show. You make it happen. So thank you so much for the Rumble rants, and thank you for the people liking this. And I can't wait to see many of you guys at our Christmas event on December 7th. Take care.